Welcome, geeks, nerds, and all variants in between. I'm Tony Diana, and this is of Nerds and Geeks, pop culture from a certain point of view. That of a Gen Xer who grew up at a time when pop culture wasn't cool, trendy, or even on the map. My hope with this channel is to share my experience with younger generations so we can find our similarities, our differences, and what makes it all unique, but ultimately to express how much we love it and how it has saved our lives more than once. I also want to do interviews with people who are creatives from both inside and outside the industry in comic books, pop culture, video games, you name it. So set your phaser to stun, get your 20-sided dice ready to roll, and let's hit hyperspace, as our first panel discussion is about something that got most of my generation into pop culture. I'm of course talking about Star Wars. Let's go.
Okay, here we are at the Star Wars panel. So over here I have Jim Malcolm. He's an author, musician, and an actor whose book, A Stranger in the House, spent 3 weeks on Amazon's #1. Over here, I have Vince Perrone. He's a cosplayer, actor, video game enthusiast, and a lady killer.
That's right, guys. Look out.
How you guys doing?
Good. Hanging in there.
Okay, so let's get into it. One of the first things I want to discuss with you two, actually, in particular you, Vince, is we both come from different generations of Star Wars. And my introduction to Star Wars, even Jim's introduction in 1977, was a lot different than yours because you were born somewhere around the Phantom Menace, or that's probably about when you got into the franchise. And
yeah,
at that time, and Star Wars was all accessible when you were doing it. You had video games, you had books, you had cartoons, you had the movies. We only had the movies, maybe the occasional comic book, a novel, and that was about it. So I just want to know what Star Wars was like getting into the franchise for you first.
So at least for me, it was pretty cool because, at that age, I was probably around 8 or 9, maybe 10 on the older end. And I just thought it was really cool. Grew up watching like cartoons, anime, playing a lot of video games. And growing up, I used to love a lot of sci-fi movies, going to outer space. What kid doesn't want to be an astronaut? And then
Absolutely.
I see this movie where there's a kid. Normally, you think of Star Wars as like your parents' thing, like my dad and my mom, they watched it, they talked to me about it. So I'm like, oh, that's like an older person movie. Then I see this movie come out, and I'm like, wait, this movie's about a young kid who's like the most powerful Jedi. Like, it made me feel like I could be part of this universe. So I grew attached to, Anakin Skywalker. He might not be everyone's favorite, but again, at my age, I was like, he was very relatable to me in a way. And I know I just got into it after. Then you saw like the lightsaber fighting, and like it just was such an interesting topic for me. Also, too, I guess I would say it still was hard to be a Star Wars fan at that time because it was mostly known as, no offense to anybody, but it's known as like a nerdy thing to watch. So even when my age, it was still popular. I feel like it didn't get more mainstream till the 2010s or the 2020s, like the modern days now.
And that's interesting because your generation was a rise of the nerd, if you will. That's like, the late 80s, early 90s for sure. The nerd and the geek sort of took over pop culture all the way up to MCU and what we have today. So that's neat. You had the beginning of it where you felt like, oh, it's a nerdy thing. That's cool. Jim, what about your introduction to Star Wars? How would you paraphrase it?
Well, I remember the movie came out and everybody was talking about it. I was in the 3rd grade in 1977. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't even thought back then.
Yeah. I remember it was like the longest time before I actually saw the movie. Like every time my dad would say, we're going to go see it on Friday night, something would happen during the week. Forget to give the dog water. Well, guess what? We're not going. Took forever and ever. And I knew some of what the movie was about, but it was everywhere. And it was just like one of those things. Kids have their lunch boxes. They're bringing the Star Wars trading cards to school. On show and tell days, somebody brought in an X-Wing fighter. And I was just like, I haven't even seen this movie yet. And it's just, I have to see it. When I went to go see it, it was like nothing I've ever seen before. I mean, I watched the original Star Trek in reruns when I was a kid, Lost in Space, great classic shows, but they didn't measure up to what I saw on the big screen. And
a lot of what we were getting was sort of like the leftovers from the last generation in reruns.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So this is our first thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I saw the movie, I was like, oh my God. The next day, the kid that lived down the street went to see the movie with us. The next day, he came over. My parents had a big box. We played in the box all day. It was the Millennium Falcon. Like, you know. And of course,
That's cool.
I always wanted to be Luke. Luke was who I wanted to be. And my friend had blonde hair. So he's like, I got blonde hair. I get to be Luke. You can be Han Solo.
Of course.
And in retrospect, I mean, Han Solo.
He's a cool character. I mean, he's my favorite character,
Yeah.
but I mean.
But,
Han, but go on.
but at the time, it was kind of like, but I want to be Luke.
Right.
So yeah, it was
Because he's a Jedi.
yeah.
But also, if I may bring up at that time period, Vince, sorry.
Sure. It's okay. Either one.
We worked on movies and stuff, so audience gets understand. I'm used to calling him Vinny, so
Yeah.
he prefers
Even if it's
Vince.
with IE, everyone, I never know if that's normal. I spell it with a Y, but IE is fine.
Hey, man, it's your name, you know? Vince it is.
Yeah.
So anyways, have you ever had the misfortune or fortune to see the Star Wars Holiday Special?
I have not. I haven't heard anything good about it, to be honest. Even real Star Wars fans are like, no, you can skip that one. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, there's nothing good about it. But, you know, at the time...
There's honestly not even one little redeeming quality about it.
No, there is. There's
Boba Fett.
Boba Fett, that's right.
I knew it.
The only
Boba Fett.
redeeming. Yeah.
And he
But,
actually has, 3 lines in it?
He's a cartoon.
Oh, man. I got to see it now just for that.
It's on YouTube.
I'm
You can
sure.
find it. Yeah. But again, this goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning about having such sparse access to Star Wars being a kid. The holiday special came out, we're like, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. Was it B. Arthur? No. Yeah, it was B. Arthur. Harvey Korman, B. Arthur, Art Carney. It was Chewie's family, and his grandfather would watch this thing in the visor. It was this singer. I don't remember the singer. Do you remember her name? Anyway, she was saying all this creepy stuff like, I love you, and you're just the best. It's like, this is a kid show, man.
Yeah. You're like, Merry Christmas? Like, what?
And Mark Hamill had just had a car accident. So his face just looked all like
beat up.
Yeah. He had
Jim described it better.
he had like corpse makeup on.
Oh, man.
Yeah, the head. Scorps.
He looked like he should have been laid out at Leach Stevens. I mean, like
The eyeliner.
yeah,
Right.
he didn't even look like him. He never really looked the same after that accident.
I
But
bet.
right after. And
Oh, yeah.
it was
But
like,
it's charming because you see Harrison Ford struggling through the whole thing because he's like, well, God damn it, it's a paycheck.
Right.
I remember watching that, like when that was coming on though. It was like that. It was on Friday night, if you can imagine. I mean, I remember it was on Friday night.
Yeah.
Everything cool was on Friday night. Like
Yeah, because it's the weekend coming up.
Monday, I was like, Friday, get here. And then when it came on, I mean, you know, at 8 years old, it was just like, holy cow, it's in my living room.
Right? You just saw them on the screen and you can't watch it on VHS, DVD, you can't stream it, you can't order it. It's like, and do you remember the long wait for it to come on VHS? Because, you know, if you had a laser disc, you were lucky, but VHS just like, I'm getting older, guys, what the hell?
It's like that
I
time.
remember the anticipation for it coming on TV.
Oh, I remember
That
that.
was an event.
We audio recorded it. Don't arrest me. But, you know, we audio recorded it and would play it back. And it's just like, that's epic.
Yeah.
That's cool. And
but
now you
that was
guys
our
watch it now.
experience.
You guys are like, oh boy, what am I watching?
But that was our experience, Vinny. So imagine like being that old and like, that's all you get.
Right. I guess it's like a lot of things is like nostalgia. Like a lot of things when we were little, so innocent, it's something we enjoyed. As we get older, we're like, how can we like it? But we always got to remember it was a product of the time. So back then, maybe it was awesome. Just like my generation, a lot of your guys' generation, I won't call older, the previous generation, you guys enjoyed the 4, 5, and 6, and then I heard nothing but bad about 1, Phantom Menace, or like it was just horrible. Then the second one was even horrible, and the third one was okay, but people don't like Hayden Christian. I'm like, they were just so nasty. So it's just like I think, like I said, it's what you grew up in. Like you just feel like you have a memory of it when you're at a certain age, and it's stuck that way. And if it looks bad, I don't know. I feel like people don't want to change their mind.
Well, I think I can relate it to a different franchise. To give a good example, Star Trek. When they decided to do Star Trek: The Next Generation, fans across the board, including myself, were just like, "Well, it's not Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. I want nothing to do with it." But then around season 2 or 3, the show just blew up. But I think that was sort of the feeling about Phantom Menace and the other 3. It's like, there's no Luke, there's no Han, there's no Leia, there's no Chewie. What the hell?
Right.
Where are my characters? Who is this people? What do you mean politics? I'm Jar Jar Binks. Oh my God. They were like done. But then you notice, like everything else, give it a good 20 years or so. Here comes Obi-Wan to do Disney Plus series. Hey, Hayden's coming back. Oh my God, he's amazing now. You appreciate him.
Yeah, for sure. Same thing, like I said, like in between then they got into the Clone Wars, which was I love that movie, even though people rank on it. I thought I liked the ending. I like seeing the Jedi, the clone troopers. I personally like the clone troopers better than the stormtroopers. That might be just my generation thing. I just like their design, and they were just like, again, as I got older, when the Clone Wars animated show came out, it was pretty cool because they delve into even the clone troopers having their own code names. They're not just Soldier Number 1. They're like Rex or Wolf or something like that. They have cool nicknames, different job titles, and they made them more humanized, which I think was. And then you show like, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say they had their the chip in their brain for the command broken, but I think once that happened, they were able to be their own person, right?
Yeah, it was almost like I think that their helmets were, if I'm not mistaken, if you told me before, but it was almost like the Mandalorian helmet, which again I thought was really cool, kind of sleek design. And then when the Stormtroopers came around, which is kind of why I like the Rebels show, is that instead of it being like genetically trained perfect soldiers, they're just everyday people. So some of them might be really good, or some of them are just got in because of money or politics. So it's kind of cool to see the difference.
Absolutely. When I was young, my mother actually took an old Clorox bleach bottle and she made a stormtrooper mask out of it for me.
Wild.
Using electrical bolt for the black part, she would hand carve out the other thing. Yeah,
no way.
She actually made a mask.
Oh, you didn't keep it, did you?
No, unfortunately.
Oh man, I would have put it in a mural. I would have been like, oh man, that was.
We had
awesome.
a flood in our house, and it took out a lot of stuff, including that.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, but it's just very sweet of her. But anyways, so I'll ask you both because I'm looking at you two at 2 different generations, and I'll start with you, Jim. But when Star Wars came out with all this explosion stuff, I'm not particularly talking about from like deciding to do Rogue One, Han Solo stories, and the Disney Plus series. What was your personal feeling, knowing how locked you into the original mythology and your feeling as a kid of seeing Star Wars? How did that translate to Star Wars to you as each movie and successive series came out?
Well, I have to say, like, for me, like going back to the Phantom Menace, that was a difficult watch for me. I don't hate the movie, but there were just some things in there that were kind of like, why? Like, to compare. And the CGI was a little too over the top. I mean, there was no CGI when the original trilogy came out. What they did green screen, I think, for the Endor piece, where they're the bikes. But I felt like the Phantom Menace, like the age difference, the age gap between Padme and Anakin was creepy for me. She's older, like so much older.
Right. Yeah, we talked about that before.
Yeah, the other 2 movies, like, it got progressively better. I really like Revenge of the Sith, and Attack of the Clones was good. It had its points, but it was a good film. Moving beyond the prequels, like I thought Rogue One was very well done, and it was in the classic mode of the original trilogy. I feel like Solo was kind of like that. It didn't have Harrison Ford, but I enjoyed it. A lot of people don't like that movie.
Yeah, and then how about the Disney Plus series? Did that like take away or add to your
Completely
nostalgia?
added. It completely added. It kind of like I know we're probably going to talk about the sequel trilogy. I'll skip over that for now, but the Disney Plus shows had a lot of redeeming qualities. The only one I haven't seen is Andor. I started it. I'm about halfway through with it. It's different. It's not what I'm used to for Star Wars. I'm going to go back to it eventually. But yeah, like the Obi-Wan series was incredible.
And I know you like the way Mandalorian dealt with the aesthetics of using actual puppets and other things to make it feel like that Star Wars universe, the tangible.
Yeah, Mandalorian is like my favorite show. I love it.
Absolutely.
It's
what
great.
About you? Yeah, what about you, Vinny?
I guess in a way it was kind of I was too young to understand the universe, because again, the prequel series was like, oh, you know this story, but let's take it for how it all started. I'm like, but I don't even know what's going on here. So I was introduced kind of like in the beginning so I can catch up. I'm like, oh, these are older people, and then they move on after. And once the Disney Plus series came on, that's when I feel like it became more modern, and you didn't have to pretend that you didn't like Star Wars and thought it was nerdy. Like, it was cool to like Star Wars. So I think it's cool that there's shows like Mandalorian where it doesn't have to be kid friendly. Like, you can show that it's not just for little kids. Like, anybody can get involved. There's drama, there's action, there's mystery. I think
they
it's
straight up murder people in the Mandalorian, which I think is actually great, believe it or not.
Yeah, and to see, like you guys were saying, the whole thing about using more practical effects than just CGI makes it look more, I guess, more traditional. And I think that would entice older generation to be like, oh wow, remember when I used to do that's all they did. And it also catches the interest of the younger generation. Like, wow, you mean it doesn't have to be raw, you can actually puppet a giant alien. I always think that stuff is cool. Being an actor, I would totally rather act with somebody in a physical alien costume that's not talking than sit there and talk to like a ball or like a stick, and they're like, pretend that's an alien. I'm like, okay, I'll do my best.
So wait a minute. So you're telling me that this guy has abducted my sister, she could die, and you want me to react to a styrofoam ball on a stick?
Yep.
I'm so glad I went to
make sure you look right at his face.
It's what I went to acting school for, man. To act against a styrofoam ball on a stick. Let's go.
Hey, but if it pays me the big money, then I'm not going to complain. I'll act the shit out of that thing.
Absolutely. I have to decide if I'm bleeping stuff yet, so we'll see.
Oh, sorry.
It's fine.
What one thing that I love about, like, kind of like while we're on the topic, is how the Mandalorian, how the Mandalorian was formed from Boba Fett. Like, Boba Fett, who had like 3 lines in the entire original trilogy. And
something
they
like
took
that,
that costume and made like a religion out of it, and like a whole thing. And I don't know, I feel like it's just as successful as the original as the films.
Definitely. I mean, because they got the even in the first season, they particularly had the grit down. You know what I mean? The frontier Western effect. Because the whole story turned out to be a lone wolf and cub scenario, right? He takes baby spoilers. He takes baby Grogu and tries to protect him on the way. Classic, lone wolf and cub, which is a story of a dishonored samurai who finds a baby and he ends up protecting her, but he takes jobs on in each village.
Right.
Blah 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 blah. I think same story. But they did that. That's classic Star Wars though. It's genre mashing, right? Like the Star Wars, like the old frontier, but with a bit of fairy tale, a little bit of samurais, a little bit of mysticism. It's all crammed into one universe, which is why you can keep going back to it over and over and over. I mean, right down to the point what you brought up, Jim, about the Mandalorian. These people, even back in the day, when they create a character, they create a whole backstory for it. And then somebody sees that backstory and says, hey, that's a series. What do you mean? Call Mandalorian. Let's go. It's amazing to me. The whole mythology is amazing to me, to be honest with you. So what do you guys think about the future of Star Wars?
I'm excited.
Anything in particular
Yeah.
you're thinking about direction-wise?
I like the fact they're doing a Mandalorian movie. I'm interested with the Daisy Ridley movie. Like, kind of wondering what they're going to do with that, and wondering if it's going to redeem the last two sequel movies. Because I liked Force Awakens, and I thought Rey was a great character in that, and they just...
And good job, Jimmy. Brought it back to the sequel trilogy. Well done. Hey, he did it.
All right. And he dropped his camera.
Yeah, he's so overwhelmed he dropped his camera.
That was my...
He's like, the sequel series.
Sequel series. Sorry, continue with your thought. I had to bring that up.
Too funny.
But yeah, I'm very... It's almost like, and it's not a topic, but every time they introduce the next Marvel phase, I kind of feel like they're doing the same thing with Star Wars, with, you know, season 3 of Mandalorian ended like it was the end of a movie, and I feel like they're going to keep the story going. Like, this is going to be our new trilogy, or our new part of the franchise. Right. It's moving forward.
Definitely.
Pretty soon DC's going to be in trouble because there's going to be a movie in the future where Star Wars and Marvel characters just fusing together. That'd be a whole kind of crazy.
That almost happened, you know.
The Infinity Saber, it's just a saber that changes colors. See? Boom.
You cannot just do that.
Copyright it. Copyright it. Copyright it.
The Infinity Saber. Dude, you blew my mind on that one. Are you kidding me? Where'd you come up with that?
I just thought about it. I was like, Infinity, all the different colors, like, it has to work. The Infinity Saber, just all different gems. And that's why Darth Vader and the Emperor are trying to take it over.
Ooh. That, dude, you just blew my thought out of the water. That was great. Infinity Saber. Jim, why did we never think of that?
They're not gems. They're kyber crystals.
Oh, see? There you go.
I just did that.
Watch, now the views are going to shoot up there.
You got the freaking idea of that knight right there, man. The Infinity Saber. That's just, I want to see... Guys, when you're watching this, if you like that idea, comment below. I want to hear your thoughts on the Infinity Saber.
Yeah, right.
And what would you do with it? I mean, even if you gave it to a character like Doctor Doom, Wolverine, Doctor Strange, or anybody, what would you do with Vinny's Infinity Saber? Go.
I mean, if you want me to be honest with you, Doctor Doom actually I think would be the best character to have it. He's like, mysticism. Why not? Let's do the Force. Oh, I can control the Force. I'll be like Doctor Doom and Darth Vader fighting. That'd be an awesome fight.
Not to get off topic, but Doctor Doom is science and technology and magic all mixed together, isn't he? You know what I mean?
That's why I think he's been probably like, not to sideswipe, but I think that's why he's probably like one of my favorite villains, because he's not just about science. Like, I like that he's like science and magic. That's a cool fusion. Doesn't have to be one or the other.
I know it's a discussion for another panel because we are going to talk MCU versus DC somewhere down the line, but I definitely would love to do an entire panel about the architecture of the MCU, like if you look at the Eternals and how that bled into Wakanda's designs and their design language is just absolutely amazing. But I digress. We're talking about Star Wars.
Right. Well, I think for the future of the franchise, I think it's going positive because I feel like my kids are 5 and 6 years old, and they're at an age where they're like, oh, what's this character? What's that character? Like, they're so interested, and it's cool now. So, like, to hear, like, oh, kids are talking about Star Wars, I was like, oh, so now it's modern culture. It's not like a taboo, like, oh, you have to be, like, in your closet reading the comics. Like, it's more open, which I think is cool. It allows it to be more ventilated into the mainstream, and we'll just get more content.
Definitely.
And enjoy more Star Wars.
And I think a lot of the future of Star Wars you can thank the MCU for, in the sense that, one, Jon Favreau was part of the MCU. I mean, he's kicked off Iron Man, of course. But the whole blueprint of the MCU is something they're using now, setting up in the Star Wars universe. Because, as we've all seen, you had the Mandalorian, he met Ahsoka, we brought back in Luke, and then Sabine, Sabine's coming into it, Hera's coming into it, Zeb's coming into it, they introduced Thrawn. There's a lot of these other characters, Chopper and countless others. But they're totally building towards a sort of end game level, if you'll excuse the expression, event. Whether that's the Mandalorian movie or something, but all these TV series, even Skeleton Crew is a new one, they're all building towards a Thrawn thing. So I think they're taking the MCU blueprint and kind of like trying to do a whole build-up. And I think that's been Filoni's idea from day one. It's like I think he wants to kind of reinvigorate Star Wars where the sequel series couldn't, right?
Right.
And also, I think he's trying to, my opinion, I think he's trying to give Luke a better send off than he got in the movies, of just turning into a ghost. Now we get to see him like he did the whole Darth Vader tunnel fight with the lightsaber. He had all these great moments, and now you can because of digital technology, and it kind of like make you feel like they did Luke good. Now I'm okay.
Yeah, right.
And who didn't
It's
cry
almost
during
like
the return or the rescue? Sorry.
Do you think that they're trying to like reinvent it, like just make up, say, hey, this happened, but they're trying to make it, I guess, more acceptable?
Well, I don't think they're going to change canon. I don't think they're going to change the movies for anything because they are done. They're there. They respect them. Filoni's a total. I mean, Filoni had nothing but great things to say about the prequel series. He said that was necessary for Vader. So he looked at Star Wars through a very Star Wars lens, to where it's like, a lot of fans look at stuff and they get a little cocky, like, well, I would have done it this way. And, they get their nitpicky stuff, of course.
Right.
He just looks at it with absolute respect and love. And you could tell that. But yeah, I think in the future, I mean, I totally think they're heading toward a Grogu Rey future thing. You'll see him I think you're going to see him in the Rey movie. He'll have his little Mandalorian armor, his green hair sticking out, and he's got a lightsaber. He's like 91 years old, right? And he's talking now, and like, oh, okay, this is where Grogu's headed. Cool.
That's so funny.
Yeah, he'll be like a teenager by the time he's 91.
Right. So, Jim, I do have a question for you, though. What do you guys think of Boba Fett, right? He was the bounty hunter, the original. And then the prequel series made Jango Fett his dad. And then they have the actual Mandalorian. So what armor do you feel that, not armor, let me rephrase it. Do you feel that Mandalorian gets more respect than Boba Fett, even though Boba Fett was the original?
Good question.
That's a really good question. No, I don't. Because like they introduced Boba Fett before the movie came out, before Empire Strikes Back. Like, I think it might have even been before the holiday special. Like, they were talking about Boba Fett. And I mean, while he didn't play a big part in the movies, he was a pretty cool character. I mean, he had a jetpack. He had the helmet. He was just, right. I remember getting the action figure and just being, awe of it. I have one, actually. It's behind glass.
Nice.
Mine's buried in the closet.
But I think, honestly, like, when the prequel, when Attack of the Clones came out, I remember seeing the trailer and I saw Jango Fett. And the first thing I thought is like, oh my God, they're bringing Boba Fett into this. And it turns out, he's a clone. Spoiler, if nobody saw the movie.
For shame.
But even like the Book
right.
of Boba Fett series, like they gave him closure in that. Like in a Return of the Jedi, he falls from the Sarlacc. It's like, oh God, they're doing a Darth Maul, even though Darth Maul wasn't even around then.
Yeah, right.
And then he hand comes out of the sand, and it's just, yeah, I think it was a great character. I mean, the Boba Fett series wasn't it's not on the Mandalorian level, but I enjoyed it.
Because that's where I was going off of, because people compare Boba Fett, and I'm like, it's hard because Boba Fett is the original, even though technically canon-wise, he's a clone of Jango Fett. So technically, he's a copy.
When he showed up on the Mandalorian, though, when he that
was cool.
It was like the hair on my arms was standing up. I was like, oh my God!
Right.
Yeah, it's just like, oh my God, it's like a legacy character.
Right.
Which is great.
Do you guys think they'll ever have a movie? Because I feel Mandalorian's very popular. Do you think they'll have like a prequel series about like the Mandalorian Civil War? I would like to see that. No Jedis. No Jedis is just literally like.
Are you talking about the Night of 1,000? You talking about the Night of 1,000 Tears?
Yes.
That whole thing. That would be interesting. I could see that as like maybe a Disney Plus like 4-parter type of thing.
Right.
I don't know if there'd be enough interest in a movie. It depends how well Bo-Katan's really received, right?
That's true.
How Kate Sack has done with the character, if people are like really, really into it. What about you guys out there watching? Let me know what you think of Bo-Katan and all the Rebels and the Clone War characters you've seen come into the Star Wars universe of live action. Let me know your favorite and your worst. I think that'd be neat.
Or maybe the story of how the Darksaber came about, which is from the first Mandalorian Jedi. That'd be kind of
That would be cool because that also ties into the Mythosaur, doesn't it? Right? And they just brought the Mythosaur back into the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
You know that's going to come into something somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to hear where the Darksaber come from? There's only one black lightsaber in existence, as far as I know, unless you guys know more lore than I do.
Spoiler alert. Not anymore.
I knew it. They ruined it.
No, I mean, have you seen the Mandalorian finale?
I haven't seen the finale.
I don't know.
No.
I heard nothing. I say nothing. I know nothing.
Oh, okay. So
good.
Something I have to watch. Got
Gotta
it.
make a note. Don't mind me.
That's okay.
But
That's okay. I'm sure people on here are like, what do you mean he hasn't watched it yet? What's wrong with this kid?
You'll get to it. Have you noticed a certain influx in celebrities coming into Star Wars?
Of course, it's like we were saying, it's like the MCU. Who can get on to Star Wars now?
Yeah, but like even the early days of Star Wars, all the way up to the prequels, it's like vastly a lot of unknowns outside of the odd like Christopher Lee, Alec Guinness, those sort of older gentlemen. But a lot of the main characters were done by relative unknowns, and now all of a sudden we see people like Rosario Dawson, Katie Sackhoff coming into the series. I don't mind it. It's just kind of interesting because it's just like more and more celebrities are trying to get into Star Wars.
Was it the same in the original trilogy that you guys saw as kids? Was it the same thing? A lot of unknown actors, or a lot of the actors were known?
The only actor that was known was Alec Guinness.
And he played Ben Kenobi.
Peter Cushing, too.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Peter Cushing, Horror Meister. Those are the other two. I mean, Mark, Carey, and Harrison were all relative unknowns.
Yeah, I remember.
So
This made them stars.
There was an episode of The Partridge Family where Mark Hamill plays the daughter's boyfriend. Carrie Fisher was the psycho girlfriend, I think, in the Blues Brothers.
Yes.
Wow, that's funny.
Harrison Ford played a.
He was a carpenter, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he did bit parts in movies.
He was a what do they call him? Wow, I can't think of the name. In a hotel, they carry your bags. I feel so stupid.
Oh, bellhop?
Concierge.
He played a bellhop in The Graduate.
Bellhop. Oh,
as well as having the minor parts in like American Graffiti and such. 4 Cent from Navro, but some of those were after Star Wars, but still.
Star Wars almost seems like some of it is like a good standing point for actors to get out there. It's kind of like the sci-fi version of horror movies. I'm sure if you guys seen horror movies, there's a lot of female actresses or actors. You're like, who's this person? And later on, you're like, oh man, that's where they're from. Oh no way! Like Johnny Depp was from Nightmare on Elm Street, and Jennifer Aniston was in The Leprechaun. This is crazy.
Courtney Cox was in the Bruce Springsteen video. What? Yeah, we always remember those things. But one of the last things I want to talk to you guys about is something we haven't talked about before in the past together is fan films.
Oh, I love fan films. I'm all about it. I mean, I've acted in several ones. I actually feel very excited that I play a Jedi Knight in this series that I've been lucky to be a part of. So I can't complain.
When you think there, you got to throw a link down in the comments.
Yeah, sounds good, guys. You check it out.
Is it out?
It should be out. Yeah, I have to contact the director. He was setting last time I talked to him. He was editing all the lightsabers and stuff like that. So you had to do it like frame by frame. So it's probably gonna take super long. And he's editing it all by himself.
Yeah, I made a Star Wars fan film once. It had lightsabers in it, but it was more, it was leaning more on the political Jedi end of things. It had a couple little battles, but it was nowhere near as amazing as some of these fan films I've seen online.
Yeah, there's fun. I mean, it's all interesting. It's cool. It's just it's not even a fad to me because I feel like if it was a fad, it would die out. But like, it's just every year it just keeps getting better and better. So I think it's better that way because it makes it feel more genuine.
Have you guys seen the Vader series?
No.
Absolutely amazing.
Where do you find that?
It's on YouTube. I know I'm misquoting it. I think it's called Vader. I think it's just called Vader. But they're really he crowdfunded the whole thing, but they're so well done, and they're so focused in on Vader as a character. It's just so good. I have no other
That's
way to
awesome.
describe it. I wish I could remember the title and do you justice. I apologize if you're out there.
I think it's called Vader because I've seen it. The sets. I mean, even the character who plays Padme in it and the Emperor, like the actors, like they do a really good job of like. I thought it was part of Star Wars, so I'm like, wait a minute, that's not Natalie Portman.
Yeah, I mean, it's shot so beautifully. I don't know if they're using a black magic or a red, but I mean the filming, the cinematography is like I'm a cinematographer too, so I love that type of work. It's just like it's well done.
That's awesome. That's good to see. I mean, they always joke about people like that. Like I see on YouTube or online, like, again, we're all part of the independent industry that a lot of people, when there's not a lot of big budgets, it's more about passion. So a lot of people like really get into it. And I feel sometimes, not always, but sometimes independent movies may be better because it's really the fans giving it their heart and soul. They're like, this is all I have. And they give it their all, I feel.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. But,
So if anybody out there wants to make a Star Wars movie, I'll play a Jedi, no problem.
sure, Jim would too, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Hello there.
Hello there. Absolutely. Before we call it, is there any other aspect of Star Wars? I'm sure I'm missing a lot. We haven't gotten into video games, comic books, novels. Oh, God, Timothy's on. But is there any other comments you want to make? I mean, the dichotomy between the dialogue between Jim and Vince was great because that's exactly what the show's all about. You have these two generations together and seeing how they're so different, how alike they are, right? Doesn't matter what generations, we can enjoy the same thing. That's the lasting power of Star Wars, I think.
That's pretty cool. But I think that's what people forget. Again, it's just another universe to everyone to enjoy. It's got any character you want. You want a Jedi, you want a mercenary, you want a princess, even anybody.
And it's there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. If no parting thoughts, and I'll just call this panel to a close.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you for having me on here. And Jim, it was nice working with you again.
I know, right? Maybe we'll be on
more to come.
I'm sure you guys will be on another one soon. I mean, something's coming up I know I'm bidding on for, so that'll be good. So
sounds good. I'm always here.
Absolutely. So thank you again, guys. That was great.
Thank you.
Later.
I hope you enjoyed the panel. If you enjoyed this series, please hit the like, subscribe, and that notification bell for future videos. Also, visit my store of Nerds and Geeks for cool swag and geeky artwork by yours truly. Until next time, may the force be nerdy or geeky, or you get it. Take care, guys.